Thank you, Olja, for the kind introduction, and also, of course, for this very famous couple named presentation here. So you gave me the title, and that is, as you probably know, and then we go to the first slide. And I didn't change anything to the title, so it's their title. Integrating AI into the lung cancer screening process. And now, looking to this, luckily it's a little bit narrowed down. So I thought probably they were thinking about a title, Integrating AI in Human Life, but luckily I escaped with the lung cancer screening process. So those are my disclosures. I would like to start with the discussion that we had so far, and that is how we are using AI at the moment and the way I see that AI should be used in the future. And that is a kind of paradigm shift. So I would like to take you through that paradigm shift that me, myself, but also with all my collaborators, we made in the foreign learning study. So we started off, and Sunyi Chen is here. He was one of my fellows in PhD studies, and he worked also in this direction, the focus on lung nodule malignancy prediction. And everything that we had so far was focusing on this. Now, if you look on what the literature did over the last 5 years, because in AI, you had almost before 2020, now no relevant literature, but then AI in all fields in radiology boosted, and you see one of the
you can easily see here that also the
parts
lung
of
and
the chest is one of the major focus of the AI developments over the last 5 years. And if we focus in on what happened over the last years, then the lung nodule is, I think, altogether one of the major topics in AI development in our field. So that stress is also that it is regarded also by the whole community as one of the big chances, I think, that they think if we cannot really come to discern with AI, then it goes to discriminate when it goes to the next malignancy in benign nodules. What can we do in the rest of the body? So it's a proof of concept, in my view. If we are not successful to prove it here, anyway, I won't be successful in other parts of the body. Because the discrimination, for example, of metastasis in the liver or in the small bowel or in the bowel, will be 10 times more difficult than in the lung. In the lung, you have a kind of laboratory setting of a simple nodule surrounded by air, which now, if you cannot really make the difference there based on morphology, where can you do it in the rest of the body? So we are on the forefront of testing if AI can really bring us something like malignancy prediction. And so we worked in that same direction. And Sunyi Chen, who did the presentation before, was working on this. And just giving you a very simple example, he did very nice work, but you have this contest in this open source database, where in that time and still up till now, you saw that in the comparison between the different researchers, and that is also done here. They develop their own software and they test it in a kind of contest, and this is the contest outcome. And there you can see who is doing the best analysis on the data set that is open source. Now, he ranked first, I think, at the 8th place out of 1,000 or something. And then we, as stupid radiologists, said, now, why don't you do it multiplanar? So train the data set not only on transversal planes, but also on coronal and also on sagittal planes. And then we were at the top. So the radiological knowledge really helps, and AI cannot train itself. So that's one of the major conclusions that we made then. But we still, the figures, it goes on the cost of false positives, of course. So the better you try to be on the sensitivity part, it comes at the cost of false positives at the same time. So it's just the way you look to it, if you are at the top or not. Now, from this, we concluded that probably we would not reach a real further step in the development of malignancy prediction. And then we came into this radiology paper, which is very interesting for other reasons than the authors thought. So they compiled a data set, 2 data sets, to test their malignancy prediction AI software. And as you can see, there's a data set A and there's a data set B, and they have they added different numbers of benign nodules in both. Now, if you look to I will try again with the pointer. Yeah, it works. If you compare the sensitivity for equal distribution with benign nodules with random, then you find here a dramatic drop in performance just by adding benign nodules in a different way. So that means from only this aspect already that there is a real danger in everything we validate and develop in how we compile the data sets, and even the distribution of benign nodules influence the performance of AI dramatically. So I think this is a very important study from different reasons than the authors thought. It's also not in the conclusion. Now, what we did and everyone did is work for the improvement of your AI models for malignancy prediction on this LIDC IDRI open source database. And now you can see that still doing this. This is the output since up till 2022. And you see enormous number of testing on this open source database to improve AI for malignancy prediction. Now we formulated a lot of disadvantages of using this data set. It's purely based on nodule morphology. It lacks a solid reference standard. It has no histopathology tissue examination for the malignant nodules. There's no clinical nor radiological follow-up of the pulmonary nodules. There's an extreme heterogeneity of the CT acquisition parameters. And the dataset is not representing a lung cancer screening dataset. There is a lack of multivariate analysis to exclude unique coincidental features. There's a lack of external validation, and there's a lack of true positives in the dataset. And there's a focus on pulmonary nodule malignancy risk without link to actionability. So you don't know what you have to do afterwards. Now, the key question is AI and CAT training and CNN primarily learning from nodule size and not from morphology? So what we see in all the models that are trained apart from purely CT images, they just add some outcomes from the CT images. That also goes for many of the risk models. We think that the common denominator for the risk profiling is always the volume size and not the morphology of the outcome. Now, here is a very striking thing that is also related to everything that is published at the moment. You probably know this policy network, which is a very nice website to have a look at. If you type in the active studies at the moment, so not all the studies which I showed this morning, but the active studies at the moment, you find 15 in the US, 6 in Canada, 44 in Europe, and 6 in in China. And you can see here the denominators that we filled in. So put all studies in, so the active studies in. That is why it drops down. And then we also asked for CAT application. Now look at this. The only difference is that we asked who is using CAT. And now you can see no CAT in the United States. What is this? I think this is fairly dramatic. So we don't believe it. That's the first thing. We don't believe it. So for example, we know that you, of course, use it. But how can it happen? So in 90 centers, fill in the query that you don't use CAT. Now, we think it's Medicare, but that's open for discussion later on. And if this would be true, what they filled in, then you cannot do anything in terms of AI or whatever in the future. So this is a lead question, how things are influenced in AI. Now, there is limited evidence for the implementation of lung cancer screening. There's a focus on malignancy prediction, as I said. And if you look to the output of everything that has been published over the last 10 years on this, we have only, if we fill in. So, you see here the common denominators, lung cancer, CT, and AI. We find only 101 documents. So that's, I think, yeah, not that many. And most of them come from China and from the US. And you can also see that China and the US are the major sponsors for this development. Now here, which I addressed also, which is very important for the coming time, I think is in Europe anyway, the EU AI Act that will have major influence of everything that we do. Now, there is also an act, a legal definition in the US, and I think that is very helpful. And that is from the 2nd of February 2025 onwards in actively applicable. And they state here that any artificial system that performs tasks under varying and unpredictable circumstances without significant human oversight should be part of, now that is AI, and that should be under scrutiny of the legal procedures, or that can learn from their experience and improve their performance. So that is their definition of AI in a very broad sense. Now, if we, and that is the major paradigm shift that we made in our studies in foreign learning. So we shifted from malignancy prediction, we shifted to tasks. And if we then look to the complete lung cancer screening process, as you can see here, then you have many, many tasks that has to be fulfilled. So upload of personal data, upload of in and exclusion criteria, and so forth and so on. And that goes on till the reading of the nodule management and the nodule management protocols integrated in the reading, the decision algorithms, and so forth and so forth and so on. Then the result letters, and also Sun Yi showed us that yeah, you can even go from, and that is something that could come from the chest X-ray with all those AI programs. The AI reads the more or less the chest X-ray, and then you get automatically the written output in a visual language transformative way that the AI will read, will do all the reading of the chest X-rays. And I think that those are things that are very in the near future available already. Now, this is what we defined as the tasks that have to be done by the radiologist. So we narrowed down the problem to the utmost precise thing that you could define as a task of a radiologist. Now here, and if you have comments or you think it's wrong, then we like to hear it. But here we have the decision pathway at baseline. So the first question, and you think probably that's very simple, but that's well, an important question. Are the nodules present? Yes or no? So if the AI cannot answer that question, I think we are done. So you cannot apply it. And that is the way we set it, set it up. So if they are present, then we get the nodule detection itself. So can it really fulfill the right number of the nodules that are there? So if it's just 50%, then it's also not very helpful. The next step is the nodule classification. For example, is it calcified or solid or subsolid or not non-solid? That classification then comes into reach if AI can fulfill the other tasks. So those are all decisions that a radiologist is making in his mind without being aware that he is doing this in a split of a second. But those are the decisions that AI also have to make. And if he can go through the first 3 steps, then we are at the point that we can ask the AI if it can really measure the volume. And then select in a reliable way the largest volume. And then at the end, and that is where we would like to aim at, can it make the decision if the larger, for the baseline, if we have this 100 cubic millimeter threshold, can it reliable discern larger and smaller than 100 cubic millimeter? Now you think, yeah, this is obvious, very simple, but this is everything where the AI is going in the wrong direction mostly. Now, this is based off what we published from the Nelson data. So the probability at baseline of lung cancer for those that have no nodules is 0.4%. So that is a kind of relative threshold. And then if you go over the 100 cubic millimeter, you increase your lung cancer risk. So up to 2.4% for 100 to 300 cubic millimeters, and over the 300 to 70%. So this is based on the Nelson data. So then we apply that in the frontal neuron study. So this is then the decision scheme. So we do not use lung rats, but we focus only on on the Nelson results, and that is negative. So we go to the next round, annual round, and we randomize that then in 1 and 2 years. Tomorrow we will have also a talk on that. And then we have the indeterminate between 100 and 300, and then positive over the 300. So if you have the threshold reliable applied by AI, because the percentage of nodules over the 300 is very, very small, then you only end up with the indeterminates and positives. And that is probably then something that anyway has to be also evaluated by the radiologist himself or herself. Now, this was tested first in a task AI validation study on the detection and stratification of lung nodules smaller or larger than 100 cubic millimeter, as you see here. And we used different CAD systems, so single via from Siemens, Agfa, and AView. And we compared that with the AI from Coreline, which we, after a search with a tender with different companies, selected for foreign lung run. And we found that the negative predictive value of the AI compared to the readers was, so we had an expert read for this expert panel that we also use for foreign lung run. And then we find, and you can see it here, that only one reader performs better in the first step of the task. Can you prove that there are nodules, no nodules, or no nodules larger than 100 cubic millimeter? And that is a large percentage that goes up to 75%. And in most data sets. And that would mean if the AI could really make that decision, then you could safely rule out all those cases, so 75% of cases. And that would also mean an enormous workload and a safe decision of the AI. And everything that is then morphology related would still be with the radiologist. Now you can see the principle here. And here is only one radiologist performing better than AI, slightly better than AI, compared to the final read of the expert panel. Now, in terms of workload reduction, what you see here, that would mean a minimum of 77% and a maximum of 86%, depending on the percentage of participants without nodules. So the radiologist can focus on 40% of those nodules, the participants, and with the relevant pathology. So from this, we decided that we should make a major shift in a paradigm shift in our thinking about the application of AI in the workup and also in lung cancer screening to be at the safe side and still keep the radiologists in for all referrals, all the indeterminates and positive outcomes, but only ruling out the negative cases. So that task could be probably taken over in a quite reliable way. And with this, we could also prove that, there is possible an enormous workload reduction, which is very relevant for the workforce that is out there at the moment. At the same time, you have quite a lot of advantages by implementing AI because you get a complete standardized approach and an same performance all the time. So that was already here addressed in one of the other presentations, that you have, of course, this coffee break problem. The radiologist go to the toilet, comes back and just forgot where he was, go to the next case and he misses an obvious nodule. So that happens all the time. We know from other studies that during the daytime, the performance of a radiologist is very good in the morning, but then the misses come at the end of the day. And that is when you do your lung cancer screening tasks at the end of the day, not in the morning. So that problem is not there if you use AI. So, and you will also achieve a very high substantial cost reduction. Now, from that concept, we thought we are going to test different approaches. So the first is the current practice. And ideally, if you compare it with breast cancer screening, you would like to use a CAT system together with a radiologist and with 2 readers. And we thought we replace 1 reader in our foreign learning study and then look to the discrepancies. And with the follow-up that we have afterwards, we could also trace down if we would have double negatives. Now, from this, we do a discrepancy analysis. So at the moment that AI and the reader with the cut are not in agreement, we do a discrepancy analysis, and that is something that we do with the expert panel. We are, more or less projecting a situation that was already mentioned, that AI can take over. So that is the hypothesis behind the study, that AI can take over the complete first read. Now, this implementation, so this is the protocol that we used. So the first read, specialized radiologist as the first independent read. He would do that with single via oncology, that most of you will know. The second read would be done by the AI totally independent, so they do not know their outcome, by the AView software for Coreline. And then we would do a discrepancy reference read with the expert panel. Now, if you see the first outcomes, we found a very low rate of negative misclassifications by the AI in the first. So we did an analysis here in the beginning from 3,670 8 participants, and that tuned down to 439 negative discrepancies after comparisons read to the expert read. And of those, we found 3 false negatives with the AI and 4 with the radiologist at the detection level. And if you go to the indeterminate level, so that's the classification level, you get even a lot more false negatives by the radiologist. So here we see in the overview of this first analysis, we see already the difference between the AI and the radiologist, especially on the detection of nodules and also partly on the classification of the nodules. Now, here are some examples of the detection errors. Now, you probably cannot believe it, but if you go through thousands and thousands, you have those kind of detection misses. So this was just missed by the radiologist, as you can appreciate here, big nodule. So we call it the coffee break miss. And that is, yeah, it happens. And this was a baseline. And we have a second one here, which is also nicely appreciated. It's probably also a little bit less easy to interpret. You see it more that was also with the same with the chest X-ray that was presented in one of the former presentations. If you come in the periphery of the highlight, then it becomes more difficult. So 2 detection misses, and there are several more, but I cannot address them all, which you would say, yeah, we don't miss it. Everyone misses it. So it's not one radiologist, one center, it's in all the centers. Now here, there is an other detection error from a radiologist with big consequences. So there's a small one here, as you can see over here with this arrow. And now we had a no-show of the participant with 3 invitations. So the participant came 8 months later, and then we find here a big mess. So it is not that just you can wait. Yeah, I think this is a case that proves that you not always can wait 6 months for the follow-up scan. And here, yeah, the interval was a little bit larger, even 8. It probably went to a different stage. Now, then other detection error of the, this is detection error of the AI. Now you can appreciate here, and that's completely different. So if AI has detection errors, you don't understand why. That can be in the whole chain, that there is something, that there is a misregistration of the CT data. It can also be in the transfer from the data to the AI system. It can be something that is related to when the detection of the AI was running, that you have not a complete stable feed of the for the electricity, for example, that steers the whole system. Now, all kind of those things we are testing to understand why there are detection errors that we cannot explain. So this was a detection error between the bronchi. So that is not that simple, probably. And now, yeah, you can see it here. You can, oh, wait a minute. Between the bronchi there, and there, yeah, those are the mediastinal settings. Here's it very clear, of course. It's small, but it is there. And in the 3 months follow-up, you see it at the right. It is a nodule growth at 3 months. So not a real increase that we could measure. So it went to the next round. So the 4 in the long run baseline result, we said we can use it for ruling out negative cases effectively up to 80%. And that is quite high. We can use it also as a function as a potential first reader. That is what we are testing and want to prove in for learn. And only 3.7% of participants following a single baseline CT scan are referred. So the system, as we can see it now, and we have also the annual follow-ups now, show that double negatives, we had, I think, 1 or 2 that we traced down. So it happens. Then we published this in the paper that I showed before, and then we did a complete different study to prove, just to test the AI in a lung cancer screening data set with 7 years at least follow-up, and at the same time histological proven cancers. And that was in the UCLS study. So we did a major effort to get all the data cleaned up. We brought it to our center, and we did an extra read altogether. We had 10 radiologists, so from the UK, in the independent read where we were blinded for. Then we had also 5 radiologists at the European level with the expert read. And altogether with those 10 radiology, we came up all registered in a separate database. And then we agreed also with separate undersigned letters that we would not have any knowledge of the outcome of the data, and the reference read was complete and closed at a certain date, as you can see here, the 19th of June, and then was the closure of everything before we opened up the outcome of the data. And then in the same month, we opened up the data, and we just had to more or less analyze the outcome. And that's what I would like to show here. So, and this is what we did not expect, and that we also not hoped for, to be honest. So we were a little bit disappointed by the outcome, but AI outperformed all the radiologists. And I personally found that a little drama, but it is what it is. So the negative predictive value here is, in the case of AI, you see it here at the right, 92%, and you can see how the other readers performed: 83%, 80%, 77%, 78% for the negative predictive value. But it becomes worse. So here we have some, just to give you a taste, how the nodules were, and we have an overview of the small cell carcinomas, here one in the right upper lobe with stage 1A3. And yeah, it proves that and that is in contrast with what have been said before, that not the stage is always related to the tumor size. It also is very depending also on the histology, and even small cells like here can be in an early stage while being a large tumor still. Now here's a squamous cell carcinoma as an example. Now this is of course very difficult. You see, we know from the Nelson study, for example, that the most lung cancer development is in the upper lobes. Yeah, that's where you also have the plaques. And this is one of the examples where we would like to have a discussion on, are those plaques, or is this a first developing cancer? So this is an apical lung fibrosis, and this is a very common finding, but it is also a predilection site for lung cancer tumor development. And this is a positive case. Then another squamous cell in the right upper lobe. This really shows you a different location, but in the upper lobe, attached to the pleura. And yeah, if you do not hear, so this is still an early stage, but it should follow also early therapy. Then here an adenocarcinoma in the left upper lobe, also early stage. And yeah, here we did yeah, we had this discussion also last year. What is the best option to get it out? Wait or surveillance and then take it out. So what the best option is, we don't know. But here it has been taken out. And it was an adenocarcinoma without a very small solid component, smaller than 100 cubic millimeter. And following the Nelson protocol, it should have been an annual follow-up. But in the first Nelson protocol, so the 1.0, we had a 50 cubic centimeter protocol and the UCLS also. And that is why here it was taken out immediately. Now, an adenocarcinoma in the left upper lobe, also in the early stage. And you can see that here you have many, it's multiform, and you cannot really directly say that it is a highly suspicious for malignant solid tumor. Now here, an overview, just a quick overview of all solid squamous cell lung carcinomas, 32% at baseline CT in the UCLS. You see different sizes, only 2 of them, no, 3, 4, 5, how many are there? 1, 2, 4 of them are in later stage, 2 of them are in later stages, I think. Yeah, 3 of them are later stages here. This was a late stage. The second one, so this was a late stage, this was a late stage, and that one was a late stage. So they all had lymph metastasis or hemo or systematic metastasis, those 3. So you cannot make a real direct relationship. And this one was a very late stage. But there is not a real, here we don't find a real relation between the tumor size on one hand and the stage on the other hand. Now this is that were squamous cell carcinomas, all of them. Here you see all the detected adenocarcinomas, 45% at baseline in the UCLS. And also those different, the morphology is far more variable with the adenocarcinomas, from very big and almost jellyfish findings like here, pleural, yeah, and then also cystic deterioration here, yeah, very suspicious in terms of radiological terms, which really fulfill the criteria that we always use. So, yeah, then the 3 AI detected small cells, as you can see here, at baseline, they are often large. At the left side, that was a metastasis. So that is also something that can be found at baseline without being sure that it is a fact. Now, at the end, we could do, so we are talking about specificity and sensitivity with all those procedures that we do. But you know probably that in statistics, there is this in the equations, true negative or true positive. And we don't know that. So we have also wrong terminology in everything that we publish so far. And now, for the first time, we have a true negative and a true positive. And the true positives are confirmed with histology, and the true negatives are confirmed with 7 years follow-up. So now you can really make a sensitivity and specificity performance in this manner of to validate AI, but also the reader performance. And then is, you see here the performance for the negative predictive value if you focus on the rule out. And you can see here that the EU expert panel with all the information of the other radiologists at a 99.8 negative predictive value. But also AI, so reader 1 had 99.7 and then 99.3, 99.5, but AI had the same performance. And there was only one case, which I present here, that is not really a miss of AI, So AI outperforms the radiologist overall in ruling out true negative cases, with an extremely high performance and an estimated maximum CT reading workload reduction of 79%. Now, having this, I will show you some of the features that we have implemented in foreign learning study. Now, it's also a large study. We finalized the baseline last year, December, and included in the Netherlands, I will present the Dutch figures, around 12,000 participants. And here we test so we apply the double reading AI as a separate reader, and what I explained, the radiologist with the CAD system of Siemens. Here you see the distribution of the classifications, which is, I think, like we would expect and comparable with the Nelson. And we did a baseline CT examinations. You can see here we have comparable performance as in the UKLS. So that is very nice. If you look to the negative misclassifications of AI here, we find in the UKLS 5%. And we have so far 1.8% in our foreign learning study. If you look to the positive misclassifications of AI, is of course the problem of AI is 5% in the UKLS and is almost 8% in foreign learning. And that is where the radiologist, of course, outperforms the AI with false positives. So we think that this is a very, consistent AI performance at the rule-out performance. So then this huge issue about the diameter and volume still in the US, which we do not understand. So we would like to point out that we published quite a lot of data on this already. You can find it in Thorax, and there we find and we saw from another presentation almost the same figures, 47% and 85% respectively for mean overestimation of the nodule volume, and with same compared to semi-automatic volume detection. And if you extrapolate so that's the overestimation if you do diameter measurement in different directions. Now, for the follow-up round, I will show some data of the follow-up round, and that is in almost 3,000 cases. We use different criteria, more stringent criteria. So at baseline, you filtered out. It's a kind of prevalence screen where you filter out all stages, and then you have a clean setup for the annual, where you just look in fact to the incidental new developed screen detected tumors. And that's what you can appreciate here. So you need then smaller volumes to catch the tumors with the same lung cancer probability. Now, if you want to use the nodule volume as a biomarker for growth, you run in all kinds of difficult problems. So at baseline, we do the detection with algorithms, so detection algorithms, which are now not completely, but anyway, fairly comparable with a deviation up to 10 to 15% between the different softwares. But that is already quite a lot. And you get, because it's a maximum size algorithm, so it also includes everything that is non-solid. It is an enormous variable. So I will show that. There are a few papers that address this problem, and they focus on the solid component. Tomorrow we will have a presentation which is more focusing on the relevance of the solid component. So for detection, we use the maximum size algorithm. For the calculation of the VDT, we use the solid component. And that is quite important to realize. And here you see the difference. So if you do a maximum volume analysis, that is the upper row. So between here, then with a 3 months follow-up, you calculate a VDT of 1166 days. But if you do it with a solid component, it becomes referable, actionable, 183 days. You see the same over here, another patient, 760 days or something, yeah. And if you do it with the solid component algorithm, it goes down beyond the 400 days and it becomes actionable. So 2 cases, but there are many cases where you can see the same principle. The solid, so the segmentation algorithm that you use has an enormous impact on the fact if it's actionable in the whole decision making, the referral, everything. Another comparison here, which shows that manual volume is not performing as well as the AI does. So here we see a baseline, this nodule, then at 3 months follow-up, you can appreciate here that reader 2, reader 3, and reader 1 with manual volume all say, okay, you can go to annual. Only the AI, completely standardized, says, no, this is referable. At the annual moment, you can appreciate here that everyone recognizes that it is growing. So if you want to do it early, you need all those standardizations, and you need probably also the standardization of AI to get it really in time. Now, another example, if you do it with manual with diameter, you can see that the diameter approach is here saying after 3 months that it is not growing and can go even to annual, that the volume approach of one radiologist says, okay, it's growing and beyond the 400 days, and AI immediately detects it early that it is growing. So also here, AI outperforms the other readers. Then the detection errors of AI from 2,290 cases, we find 3 positive misses, so negative outcomes when while the expert read says it's positive. And that happens all the time when there is a bulla, mostly when there are bulla involved. So here you see this is not, it is at the edge of a bulla where it's negative. You see also that over here there are small bullae and also over there. So we have to wrap up. I think it's getting too late. Then I go quickly through the principles, and I will finish in 2 minutes. The new nodule distribution after 3 months follow-up, you can see they resolve. They can be resolved, they disappear. 55 of them disappear, and they can be stable. And this is all very nicely reflected by the AI analysis. Now, standardize also the recon and kernel. Here you can appreciate that the segmentation is depending on the kernel. You see 3 different kernels, and the outcome goes from 748 to 306 to 464. So enormous difference, even almost double difference, but depending on the kernel you use. So you don't have to speak about vendors. This is all within one vendor. The same goes for the reconstruction. Here you have an iterative reconstruction that really spoils the whole analysis. Here the nodule becomes benign because the outliers give in iterative reconstruction also very high absorption coefficient in the algorithm, by which is classified as calcified. So this is the last slide, comparison of two vendors. And you can see here, one vendor says it's 90 and the other 100, but it gives you complete different outcome in the decision making. And we are now working on, you see here, anonymous data on detection, and you will see that there's a big difference in detection. So that are the orange bars, a big difference in detection of the different software packages. And that is, I think, mandatory. So altogether, I think it's mandatory to have an online monitoring of the parameters. It can be used, of course, to replace a second reader, but has great potential for a first read to rule out the negatives as a complete new way to approach it, and leave all the positives to the radiologist in principle. And then it could be used as a first reader, which is a real arbitration, a real paradigm shift. And then the arbitration read is only 1 out of 5, so you get an enormous reduction in workload, and only 3.7% of the participants are referred. So the major, I think, lesson here is that validation, validation, validation. And there should be no AI implementation without validation. That's the only thing you have to remember.